Now, world press freedom is in decline. That is the assessment of a rights group, Freedom House, which has just released its annual Freedom of the Press report. Africa 54's Hayde FitzPatrick looks at what the findings mean for Africa.
The study is a snapshot of the global media environment. It measures the diversity of news and information and ability of newspapers, radio stations, TV channels and internet sites to operate without the threat of retaliation. Jennifer Dunham led the research team.
It's important that all citizens have free access to information, and that also that there's a free press operating that can hold governments to account and that can also report to citizens and to the larger world about the events that are going on in their countries.
The report rates countries on a scale of 1 to 100. The higher the score, the worse the situation. How does Africa measure up? Dunham says it's a mixed bag of good and bad.
Ethiopia is a prime example where a bad situation got worse last year because of the state of emergency and the protests. I think that codified what was already going on in practice.
Ethiopian authorities banned the public from reading information from people who had been exiled, the report says. Officials continued to arrest and detain journalists for their coverage of anti-government protests. In South Africa, long considered one of the freest free speech countries on the continent, President Jacob Zuma has been accused of politicizing the leadership of the state broadcaster and limiting coverage of violent pre-election protests. South Sudan had the biggest decline in media freedom. The DRC, Burundi and Zimbabwe remain among the worst places for journalists to work. Eritrea and Equatorial Guinea also make the list of the top 10 worst performing countries in the world. But there's good news. Africa overall scores higher than places like Eurasia and the Middle East, which are considered the world's worst regions for press freedom. Dunham says Africa's media landscape is volatile but not dire.
We see countries like Uganda or Kenya or South Africa where the media space is very contested, but there's also a very vibrant media community. There's a lot of really good, aggressive reporting and a lot of press freedom advocacy groups who are doing a good job. We've also seen improvements in recent years in West Africa. West African countries are actually making an effort, as a lot of them recover from conflicts from several years ago, to implement laws and policies that are very positive.
Media freedom can often affect political outcomes. Dunham says it's during elections that the battle over ideas requires a robust, open debate.
We see a lot of countries or governments doing less outright rigging of elections and more manipulating the media environment months or even years before the election, taking over private media outlets and having their friends own them and change the editorial tone, or even not giving space on the public broadcaster to opposition candidates. So it's kind of, the whole system is rigged, so they don't have to do violence or ballot rigging on the day of the election.
Dunham says Africans are becoming a lot more savvy in the way they receive and distribute their news, thanks to cell phones and social media, putting more power in the hands of the public to shape their media environment. Hayde FitzPatrick, VOA News, Washington.